Have you been in the milk aisle lately? It's kind of crazy, right? This giant wall of choices, a sea of different cartons. What used to be a super simple decision has gotten, well, surprisingly complicated. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why that is and get into what's really behind the great milk debate. I mean, it is a classic case of choice paralysis. The dairy aisle has absolutely exploded with options. And it's not just about what tastes best in your coffee anymore. There's a much, much bigger conversation happening. One that touches on our health, our planet, and yeah, even our ethics. So let's dive in.
For a whole lot of people, the shift away from dairy is being driven by three really powerful arguments. And in this explainer, we're going to break down every single one, the nutritional, the environmental, and the ethical, to really understand what's fueling this massive change.
All right, first up, let's talk nutrition. This argument starts with a pretty simple idea, one you'll hear from groups like the vegan charity Viva, and the idea is this: milk is species-specific. So the big question becomes, how does milk that's literally designed for a baby cow actually stack up for a human?
Well, when you put them side by side, the differences are pretty dramatic. Cow's milk has more than double the protein and almost 4 times the calcium of human milk. But on the flip side, human milk has way more iron. And according to these sources, these differences aren't just random. They are perfectly tailored to what each baby needs.
So, why are they so different? Well, all that protein in cow's milk has one main job: to help a calf get big fast. Human milk, on the other hand, is playing a totally different game. It's geared for a much slower growing infant whose #1 priority is developing a massive, complex brain.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? A calf doubles its weight in just 40 days. A human baby takes 180 days. That's 6 months. So proponents of this argument say this is pretty clear evidence that we're drinking a formula designed for a type of rapid-fire growth our bodies just aren't built for.
And it's not just the amount of protein, it's the type. Cow's milk is a whopping 80% casein, while human milk is mostly whey. For a lot of folks, that heavy casein load can be really tough to digest. And this is wild. Casein is such an effective binder that it's literally used as a base for certain glues. Yeah, glue. So it's maybe not so surprising that some research links it to digestive issues and allergies in humans.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've talked about our bodies, now let's talk about the health of the planet. This is the second major pillar in this whole debate, and when you start to look at the data here, the numbers are pretty staggering.
So there was this huge study from Oxford University back in 2018, published in the journal Science. They crunched the numbers from almost 40,000 farms. And what did they find? To produce just 1 liter of dairy milk, you're looking at about 3 times the greenhouse gas emissions of the plant-based alternatives. 3 times!
And if you thought that was a big gap, the land use is even more dramatic. That same study found that dairy requires about 10 times more land than most plant-based milks. That is a massive footprint, and often it comes at the expense of forests, which is a major driver of wildlife extinction.
And then you've got water. A single liter of cow's milk can guzzle anywhere from 2 to 20 times more fresh water than its plant-based cousins. So when you add it all up, emissions, land, and water, you start to get this really clear picture of just how resource-intensive dairy is.
This all led the researchers to this incredibly powerful conclusion, a statement that seriously made headlines. They said that avoiding meat and dairy is the single biggest thing we can do to reduce our impact on the earth. I mean, that one sentence totally reframed the conversation, making our food choices feel truly global.
Now I know what you might be thinking, but what about soy milk and deforestation in the Amazon? And that's a fair question. But here's something that might surprise you. Data from sources like Our World in Data shows that about 95% of all that Brazilian soy, it's actually grown for animal feed. To support the meat and dairy industries, a tiny, tiny fraction of it actually goes into making products like soy milk.
And that leads us to our third and final argument. This one moves beyond nutrition and the environment and steps into the ethics of the dairy industry itself. This is where organizations like the Vegan Society focus, looking at the standard practices required to get milk on the shelves at such a massive scale.
So here's the biological reality. For a cow to produce milk, she has to give birth. So, in commercial dairy, she's kept in a constant cycle of impregnation, birth, and milking. But the step that's really central to this ethical argument is step 3. The calf is separated from its mother, usually within just 24 hours. And why? So the milk that was intended for her baby can be collected for us.
So what happens to all those calves? Well, the males, along with any females who aren't needed to join the milking herd, are known as bobby calves. And because they can't produce milk and they aren't the right breed for the beef industry, they're essentially considered a byproduct of making milk.
To give you a sense of the scale of this, let's just use one country as an example. In Australia, sources report that over 400,000 bobby calves are sent to slaughter every single year, treated as waste products, sometimes just days after they're born.
And this is where we see a direct link that a lot of people just aren't aware of, the one between dairy and veal. Male calves that aren't killed immediately are often sold into the veal industry. As the group Animal Equality puts it, the two are intrinsically, completely connected.
And finally, there's the lifespan of the dairy cow herself. Naturally, a cow can live for 20 years, even longer. But the incredible physical strain of constant pregnancy and high-volume milking means that in the industry, her body is often considered spent after just a few years. At that point, she too is sent to slaughter.
So, where does all this leave us? We've gone from biology to climate data to industry ethics. Now let's bring it right back to where we started, standing in that supermarket aisle. The arguments we've walked through really leave us with three key questions. On the nutritional side, is a formula for a calf the right fit for a human? Environmentally, what's the real planetary price tag for that glass of milk? And ethically, what are the standard industry practices that make it all possible? The goal here was never to tell you what to drink. It was to pull back the curtain on the incredibly complex story behind what feels like such a simple choice. We've laid out the arguments, so now the question is back with you. Standing in that aisle, what does that choice mean to you? Thanks for tuning in.